The red phone hasn't rung this urgently since the Cuban Missile Crisis. In the shadowed corridors of the Kremlin, Vladimir Putin's steel-gray eyes scan classified intelligence reports that could reshape the global order within hours. Halfway across the world in the marble halls of power that define American democracy, decisions are being made that will echo through history books for generations to come. This isn't just another diplomatic spat between superpowers. This is the culmination of decades of chess moves, proxy wars, and psychological warfare that has brought two nuclear giants to the very precipice of a confrontation that could redefine civilization itself. The stakes have never been higher, and the players have never been more unpredictable. From the frozen battlefields of Eastern Europe to the cyber warfare laboratories hidden beneath Moscow and Langley, a new kind of conflict is unfolding. It's fought not just with tanks and missiles, but with information, economics, and the very fabric of truth itself. Every tweet, every sanction, every troop movement sends ripples across a world holding its breath. Putin, the former KGB operative who turned Russia from a collapsed Soviet state into a nuclear-armed challenger to Western dominance, now faces his greatest test. His every calculation, his every move, is being watched by intelligence agencies across 5 continents. Meanwhile, the American political machine churns with unprecedented intensity as leaders grapple with threats that traditional diplomacy seems powerless to contain. What you're about to discover will challenge everything you thought you knew about modern geopolitics. The real story behind the headlines, the secret negotiations, the failed peace attempts, and the terrifying reality of how close we've come to a point of no return. This is the untold story of a conflict that began long before the first shot was fired, and one that threatens to reshape the world order as we know it. Pause for subscription call to action. Before we dive deep into this explosive story, if you're fascinated by geopolitical analysis and want to stay ahead of the world changing events happening right now, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We're about to uncover information that mainstream media won't tell you, and you won't want to miss a single revelation. The relationship between Russia and the United States has always been complex, but the current tensions represent something far more dangerous than traditional Cold War rivalry. Unlike the predictable ideological standoff between capitalism and communism, today's conflict operates in a gray zone where the rules of engagement are constantly shifting, and where the next escalation could come from anywhere. To understand how we reach this critical juncture, we need to examine the key players and the chess game they've been playing for over 2 decades. Vladimir Putin didn't rise to power by accident. His ascension represents a calculated response to what he perceives as Western humiliation of Russia during the chaotic 1990s. When the Soviet Union collapsed, Russia lost not just territory and influence, but its identity as a global superpower. Putin's strategy has been methodical and patient. Rather than confronting American power directly, he's employed what military strategists call asymmetric warfare, using unconventional methods to level the playing field. Cyber attacks on critical infrastructure, information warfare campaigns designed to sow division in democratic societies, and the strategic use of energy exports as geopolitical weapons have all become standard tools in the Russian playbook. 2016 U.S. presidential election marked a turning point in this shadow conflict. Intelligence agencies from multiple allied nations confirmed that Russia had conducted an unprecedented campaign to influence American democratic processes. This wasn't just traditional espionage, it was a sophisticated operation designed to exploit the fault lines in American society through social media manipulation, targeted disinformation, and the weaponization of existing political divisions. But the story goes much deeper than election interference. Putin's broader strategy involves creating what intelligence analysts call managed chaos, situations where traditional diplomatic solutions become impossible, forcing adversaries to operate in an environment where Russia's unconventional advantages can be fully exploited. The annexation of Crimea, the ongoing conflict in eastern Ukraine, and the strategic partnerships with countries like Iran and North Korea all serve this larger objective. The economic dimension of this conflict cannot be underestimated. Russia's economy, despite being roughly the size of Italy's, punches far above its weight in global energy markets. Putin has transformed Russia's vast oil and gas reserves into geopolitical weapons, using energy dependence to influence European policy and fund military modernization programs that have restored Russia's capacity to project power far beyond its borders. Meanwhile, the United States has responded with a combination of economic sanctions, military deterrence, and attempts to strengthen alliance structures that Putin views as existential threats to Russian security. NATO expansion, missile defense systems in Eastern Europe, and increased military cooperation with former Soviet states have all contributed to Putin's calculation that Russia is engaged in an existential struggle with the West. The Trump presidency introduced unprecedented complexity into this already volatile equation. Unlike previous American leaders who maintained consistent adversarial positions toward Russia, Trump's approach was characterized by what intelligence analysts describe as strategic ambiguity. His personal relationship with Putin, combined with policy positions that often contradicted established intelligence assessments, created confusion among allies and uncertainty about American strategic intentions. This uncertainty had profound implications for global stability. When adversaries cannot predict responses, the risk of miscalculation increases exponentially. Intelligence services across Europe reported unprecedented confusion about American policy toward Russia, forcing allied nations to develop contingency plans that assumed reduced American reliability in collective defense scenarios. The current situation represents the culmination of these trends. Recent intelligence reports suggest that both sides are preparing for conflicts that could escalate rapidly beyond traditional diplomatic control. Russian military exercises near NATO borders, combined with provocative rhetoric from Moscow, have triggered the highest alert levels in European capitals since the Cold War ended. But perhaps the most dangerous aspect of the current crisis is the role of non-state actors and proxy conflicts. Unlike the clearly defined boundaries of the Cold War, today's Russia-USA tensions play out across multiple theaters simultaneously. Cyber warfare campaigns can be launched from anywhere. Disinformation operations operate across social media platforms that transcend national boundaries, and economic warfare can be conducted through financial markets that operate beyond traditional government control. The psychological warfare component of this conflict deserves special attention. Both sides are engaged in sophisticated campaigns designed to influence public opinion, political decision-making, and social stability in adversary nations. Russia's approach emphasizes exploiting existing divisions and amplifying extreme voices to create political paralysis. The American response has focused on economic pressure and alliance building, but has struggled to counter information warfare tactics that exploit the openness of democratic societies. Recent developments suggest that we may be approaching a critical decision point. Intelligence assessments indicate that both Putin and American leadership recognize that current trajectories are unsustainable. Either diplomatic solutions must be found soon, or the conflict risks escalating into direct military confrontation, with potentially catastrophic consequences. The nuclear dimension adds urgency to this timeline. Both nations maintain arsenals capable of ending human civilization, and both have invested heavily in modernizing these weapon systems. Unlike the Cold War, when nuclear doctrine emphasized mutual deterrence, current Russian military doctrine appears to contemplate the tactical use of nuclear weapons in conventional conflicts, a shift that fundamentally alters strategic calculations. Regional conflicts serve as testing grounds for this broader confrontation. The situation in Ukraine represents more than a local territorial dispute. It's a proxy conflict where broader questions about European security architecture are being decided through military action. Similarly, Russian involvement in Middle Eastern conflicts, African politics, and Latin American affairs reflects a global strategy designed to challenge American influence wherever it can be effectively contested. The technology warfare dimension adds another layer of complexity. Both nations are engaged in intensive competition over artificial intelligence, quantum computing, space-based weapon systems, and hypersonic missile technology. These emerging capabilities could fundamentally alter military balance in ways that make traditional deterrence calculations obsolete. Intelligence cooperation between Russia and other American adversaries has created new challenges for U.S. strategic planning. Coordination between Russian, Chinese, Iranian, and North Korean intelligence services represents a development that American policymakers are still learning to address. This cooperation creates multiple pressure points simultaneously, forcing the United States to defend against coordinated challenges across multiple regions and issue areas. The economic warfare dimension continues to intensify. Sanctions regimes, energy market manipulation, and financial system targeting have become standard tools of statecraft. However, the global interconnectedness of modern economies means that economic warfare can have unpredictable consequences that affect neutral parties and create humanitarian crises far from the original areas of conflict. Looking ahead, several scenarios appear possible. Diplomatic resolution remains theoretically achievable, but would require both sides to make concessions that their domestic political situations make extremely difficult. Continued escalation seems more likely, potentially, leading to direct military confrontation in contested regions. The wild card remains the possibility of miscalculation, an incident that triggers responses neither side intended, leading to conflict that neither side actually wanted. The stakes of getting this wrong cannot be overstated. Modern nuclear weapons are thousands of times more powerful than those used in World War II. A conflict between nuclear superpowers could end human civilization regardless of who claims victory. This reality should soberly inform every policy decision and every public discussion about these tensions. What makes the current situation particularly dangerous is the breakdown of traditional communication channels and diplomatic protocols. The institutions and agreements that help manage Cold War tensions either no longer exist or have been severely weakened. Trust between intelligence services, military-to-military communication, and diplomatic backchannels have all been damaged by decades of escalating hostility. The information warfare aspects of this conflict directly affect every person consuming news and social media. The battle for narrative control means that citizens of both nations are being targeted by sophisticated propaganda campaigns designed to influence their understanding of events and their support for particular policy responses. Distinguishing reliable information from manipulated content has become a critical skill for democratic participation. The human cost of this conflict extends far beyond the immediate participants. Proxy wars, economic sanctions, and political instability created by great power competition affect millions of people who have no voice in the decisions being made on their behalf. From Syrian refugees to Ukrainian civilians to Russian dissidents, Ordinary people bear the consequences of geopolitical strategies they cannot influence. As we conclude this analysis, the fundamental question remains, can rational decision-making prevail over the momentum of escalation? History provides both encouraging and terrifying examples. The Cuban Missile Crisis was resolved through skilled diplomacy and mutual recognition of catastrophic stakes. But World War I demonstrated how quickly great power tensions can spiral beyond anyone's control, creating disasters that no one actually wanted. The responsibility for preventing catastrophic outcomes rests not just with political leaders, but with informed citizens who understand the stakes and demand rational policies from their representatives. The complexity of modern international relations makes public engagement more important, not less important, than during simpler historical periods. This conflict will define the next decade of global politics. Understanding its dynamics, its risks, and its potential resolution paths is essential for anyone seeking to understand the world we're living in. The choices made in Moscow, Washington, and other capitals over the next few years will determine whether we move toward a more stable international order or toward confrontations that could threaten human survival itself.